we've just read, haven't we, some more of Jesus' actions, Jesus' words, Jesus' thoughts, how he dealt with people, that sympathy and harmony and beauty about everything that he did. And I suppose, from my point of view, that I could say you could distill Jesus' words down, if such a thing were possible, and it would become, this is a very old sort of one of my grandmothers, so to me it's precious, it might not seem to you, but very precious bottle of essence. And this is perhaps what we need to carry about with us when we go about outside and we see other people and we think our thoughts on our own or in ones and twos, we have a class, and it's Jesus' words that are encapsulated in this tiny sort of bottle, and its preciousness is extreme. And they are the words, the actions and the thoughts. And I suppose if we said our faith is very much like that. Our faith is, I believe, really concentrated. And Jesus' faith was even more concentrated. So if we looked at our faith, this is perhaps how we are. We start off, don't we, as we're really young. Now we start off and we're really clear, and this is us, and there's not a lot to us. We're just there. And then we get some thoughts, don't we? Our thoughts are, as we have faith gradually as we come on. I only just realised you've got a red cloth here, so I've got to be very careful, because this is very concentrated liquid, on purpose, obviously. And this is us as we gradually go through life. And this is what happens to us, isn't it? We gradually get a bit more faith, don't we? And then hopefully we get a little bit more faith. And now I can't read any of the notes that I've written, so that's good. But at least it's on the top here, Beth, don't worry. We're okay. But you begin to see, I think, that if you look at this concentrated liquid, the concentrated liquid that's in the bottle here is quite different, this concentrated liquid. And it is quite powerful. And whatever's in there is enough to go round for everyone that was in the world after Jesus. That was a very, very tiny amount. And it's actually used for textiles, so it goes a long way. You can do an awful lot of dyeing with this. You could dye the carpet, the cloth, your clothes, your hands.
You're only getting half an exhortation.
For a very long time. You haven't yet. That is now dry, so that will be perfect. But faith is that small bottle of essence there that you see there, and that quality we know is 100%. And I don't want to diminish us, but we're bottles of various types. And if we've got lots of bottles, we could stretch those bottles along. And sometimes our faith is really full and it's really, really deep, and other times it's just a little bit transparent. But it's always there, I believe. I believe it's always there. And as we mature, and Brad said this morning, as we mature, we become less tolerant. You probably do, and sometimes we become a bit more tolerant, and that's just it. We mature and we change, and things change with us. But I think that faith that we have remains with us. Sometimes it's a bit occluded, sometimes it's very open. And we can think, and I want to think this morning a little bit about some of those people who had some of that faith to build us up, to go outside. And just these words resonate with me. Why shouldn't I? Now you probably know where that's coming from. So there are three words. Why shouldn't I? Be baptized, said the Ethiopian treasurer to Philip. They were his words, and those words have stuck with me ever since I first heard them, I think. Why shouldn't I? What hinders me, I think it says in the AV. Why shouldn't I do this? He'd just heard the good news, hadn't he? He'd heard that good news of the gospel for the first time. Philip had gone over to his chariot and said, this is what it's about. So he told him about it. And in a very distilled format and time, he accepted that responsibility, didn't he? The Ethiopian just accepted it. He heard it and he took it. And that faith, I think, was a pretty big measure of that blue liquid that went into his bottle. He got it, didn't he? He understood it. I now know what this is about and I want this. His faith was immediate and it was strong. Now, there are a couple of quotes, and I don't normally quote from anything but a biblical reference, but I have a quote here But I quite like this quote. I hope you do. You've all heard it, I'm sure, anyway. It's a quote from Audrey Hepburn, which is not the normal thing one would do on a Sunday morning, is it? But other people have also quoted this. Now, I'm sure you know this. And this is what we're thinking about a bit this morning, isn't it? Nothing is impossible. Even the very word says, I'm possible. Now, you go through life, can't you? You find new things every short while. This is one that I hadn't seen until a few years ago. It was on a wall in a school in Belgium. And I saw it, and it was hanging up there, and I thought, what a mantra, what a thing. And it's to do really with Jesus' words too, isn't it? The essence of Jesus' words. It's possible. Jesus never said, this is impossible. So I thought, even though it's a quote from someone there that changed it, and I looked it up, and there are several other people that have used it, I like that. So I've used that quite a lot in the last year with students, because the first thing a student will say to you, it's impossible. Dennis knows when people start saying things about building, and you know, people that do things in architecture and so on, and all of us have got examples. Well, I can't do that, it's impossible. And we shrink back from so many things, don't we? And yet, Jesus tells us, things are possible. And we're just thinking about that. So we're thinking a little bit about that quote this morning. Jonah. Let's think of some of these people. Jonah. Another one of my favourite people. The story of Jonah, I think, is an incredibly powerful story, isn't it? Jonah thought it would be impossible for him to preach against that great city Nineveh. Well, I suppose if it was one of us and we were sent to New York, and New York was a really evil place, which I don't think it is entirely evil, obviously, it's a very nice place, but we were sent to a big place like that and said, right, go in, they're a pretty horrible lot, and you're going to convert them all. So that's just not my thing, I can't do that. But so Jonah said no, didn't he? And he then told the sailors, because they'd cast lots, if you remember, to see who it was, and that must have been an awful thing too for Jonah, because it fell on him. And he knew, didn't he, at that point. So Jonah said, all right, fair game, pick me up, throw me into the sea, and it will become calm. I know that it's my fault. So he took that on himself. My fault, this great storm's come upon you. And we know what happens after that. Nineveh repents, he goes and repents, and then Jonah himself becomes very cross, doesn't he? Which is a very human trait, which is why I like the story, which is, well, okay, you've converted them, but, crumbs, this is not quite right, is it? So he's a cross person at that, and God then teaches Jonah further through the vine and the shade, and it withered, and the story is such a beautiful story, but God's final words there recorded to Jonah are, and that's why things aren't impossible with God, are they? Or with Jesus. Should I not be concerned about that great city? It's in our lives, isn't it? God overrules the things that we do, doesn't he? Jonah had a belief, and he had a faith. Because Jonah said to the sailors, and there's a quote there, I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord. He didn't shrink from that, did he? The God of heaven, he says, who made the sea and the land. Very powerful words. His belief was strong, and his faith was strong. And his bottle, if you like, had already got that essence in it. He knew where he was, he knew what he got to do. And I'm certain that if we gain faith, it doesn't disappear. And I don't think that example there with Jonah, which is why I gave that one there, I don't think his faith disappeared. His faith was still there. His strength was still there. It was just, if you like, it was just a bit diminished. It was just at the wrong time, and it was very human nature. And if we lose faith, perhaps we sometimes hide that faith too inside ourselves a bit, don't we, like Jonah, because we're never quite sure that we're strong enough to carry out whatever we're supposed to carry out. And then we have Gideon, don't we? Gideon is another example of faith. And his faith wavered, didn't it? In a very interesting way, where he almost tested God, didn't he? Because the Lord turned to Gideon and said, and this is Gideon being told, go in the strength you have. You're a strong man, Gideon. Go in the strength you have, your belief, your faith, and save Israel out of the Midians. And am I not sending you? So he's got it, I'm sending you. He's got God right behind him. But Lord, Gideon said, how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. You can see him shrinking away from this all the time. I really don't want to do this thing, even though you've told me I can. I'm the least of everything, the least in the clan, the least of my family. And the Lord answered and said, lovely words, I will be with you. And we know that, don't we? We know with our belief and faith that God is with us. And we know Jesus' words, that Jesus has buoyed up this Old Testament history and said, I have come, I am the one to take this way. I'm the one to give you the real faith here. And we started reading of those episodes this morning and how his radical teaching changed the world around him. And perhaps that should have been enough for Gideon to be told that. But he hadn't quite accepted, had he? He hadn't had a little bit more of that bottle of essence that he needed just to top it up. And perhaps we all need that every now and again, which is why study, talking to people, whichever way we do it, all of us need to just top up every now and again. I think Paul was saying, since he's retired, he's done a lot more reading and sees a lot more things that are possible. It is just these things, of making time to fill our lives just a little bit to keep that faith topped up, keep that bottle of liquid the right colour. So, what happened with Gideon? God said to Gideon, if you will save Israel by my hand as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the thrashing floor. If dew's on the fleece and all the ground's dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you said. And that's what happened. And Gideon rose early the next day, and he squeezed the fleece out. You can see him doing this, can't you? And wrang out the dew, and it says a full bowlful. So he got this fleece, he wrang a bowlful out, and there it is. Absolute proof. Everything dry apart from the fleece, and there it is. But he's still not quite right, is he? He still hasn't tipped enough of that little essence that he got from his own learning, his own faith and belief. So then Gideon said to God, don't be angry with me. Let me just have one more request. And just allow one more test with the fleece. And this time, can you make the fleece dry and the ground around it covered with dew? I think the whole episode is both humorous, it's sensible, it's almost testing God, it's asking for that, but because it was approached in the right way, because that faith was there, and he just wanted to make sure it was absolutely right and the right thing for him, that night God did so. So the fleece was dry and all the ground was covered with dew. And I think that is a beautiful episode. It was as if constantly Gideon was there just asking for a little bit more of that little bottle of essence of faith, just to tip in. Can you just tip a bit more in before I can do this? And as soon as, it's strong enough, I can do it. I will do it. And God could see that, and he did, didn't he? And he carried out God's wishes from there. And we have God talking again to Moses, don't we? He talks to Moses in a different way. He talks to Moses out of the burning bush, doesn't he? Saying that he's recognised the suffering of the Israelites in Exodus. And he says, God says, so now go. And same words again. I am sending you to Pharaoh. I am sending you, says God. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, similar to Gideon, similar to the other examples we know, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, same words again, I will be with you. And it's typical of the Old Testament as we read through, isn't it? God is saying to these people who are the people that have this faith, I will be with you. That is the faith. You just believe and it will happen. And I'm sure Moses' faith very much needed to be concentrated, didn't he, in order to deal with one of the most important civilizations and leaders of his time. Again, like Jonah and Nineveh, we've got here Moses, Pharaoh, phenomenally great person, probably, as we gather, a very angry person as well, who wouldn't stop at just sort of getting rid of people, or peoples, if you wish to do so. So I believe Moses' bottle, having gone through what he went through, running away because he killed an Egyptian, all the other things, all those things, he gradually built up, and he must have had a very densely filled bottle to continue his passage throughout his life. And we know the many other episodes when he was taking them through the wilderness and what happened. And we do, don't we? We have many, many examples of the impossible being possible in human terms when it's underwritten by God. And David, doesn't he? David gives us many examples of faith and of very human nature as well. In Samuel, God said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. We know this episode, this is David and Goliath. He put a coat of armour on him, a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around, because he wasn't used to them. He put things on, humanly speaking, if you like, that were the armour of protection, the physical armour of protection that you need to engage in a battle with one of the most fierce people of the time, a renowned warrior. A little lad, stripling of a lad probably, putting this stuff on, and he puts it on, and I think the most marvellous thing in here is he's almost putting on, if you like, the faith of Saul, the faith of those around him, which is the armour. And David wasn't like that, was he? Because David's faith came from a different place, it came from his God. And he just took off the armour, just saying, I can't do this, I can't have the armour of Saul and the armour of my friends and people here, because I don't need that. It's no use to me. And I think those words there are really strong. I cannot go in these, he said to Saul, because I'm not used to them. It's not my way of life. I haven't grown up like this. I don't believe this sort of thing. So he took them off. And then what did he do? It says he took his staff in his hand, walked down to the brook, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in his small shepherd's bag, which I mean just under by his tunic, so he's just very lightly clad indeed, and with his sling he approached the Philistine. He approached the Philistine, didn't he, in the way that he should do. His faith was complete in those terms at that time for that thing he did. He walked without the armour of the people. He was clothed with the armour of God because he believed. He had that faith. And he went. And his faith was incredibly strong. Very concentrated faith in his God. And he said, and these are the words that really give the clues and the hints to exactly where we're going with this. He said to Goliath, I come against you. If he just said that, that would mean he really needed all the armour that he'd just taken off, but he didn't, did he? The words that are recorded, I came against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. That was his faith. That was the essence. That was the bottle topped up totally. I have total faith in this. I can do this. And I think the whole episode there is beautifully couched in the armour being taken on and off, and how he then approached the world. And the Philistine, if you like, is a metaphor for us for the world. That's how we approach the world. And if we can do that, and it is a tough ask, isn't it? That is how perhaps we should be approaching out there at times. And we have other examples of tremendous faith, don't we, everywhere in the Bible. We've got Paul with Esther. We read Esther a little while ago, didn't we? And Esther, what a marvellous story there. You know, someone that within a blink of an eye could have just disappeared off the face of the earth because she had approached the king. The faith that she had there. Rahab, to first of all harbour and look after the spies, and then to become part of that group of people. The faith she must have had. Mary, the mother of Jesus, being told, you know, you're going to have a son. This son's going to be great. And this is Jesus. That's why we're here this morning, because she enabled that to happen. What a thing to say to someone. That faith that she must have had, that this is the right thing that I am doing here to have this child. What does Jesus say to his followers as well? What does he say? How should we approach our lives? Freely you have received and freely give. And I think that's how we receive the gospel. That's how the Ethiopian, when we started, received the gospel. Freely you've received. You receive this. They're words. They might be passed on by word of mouth at that time. They might be in a book. But freely give. Freely receive. Freely give. Do not take along with you any of those trappings, if you like, of things that we feel we need. I mean, in the back of the car today, I've got my small rucksack, and I've got sketchbooks and things, but also, the most important thing, I've got little cards. If I put into machines, they're going to give me money. And I might need money today, mightn't I? Why don't we need money today? We'll go to Jackie and Dennis's. We don't need money for food, I don't think. We don't need money for anything else. We've got enough petrol in the car, diesel in the car, so we're all right. But he said, don't take gold, silver or copper in your belts. And that is all those bits that we don't need. Don't take any of those things that you really don't need. Take no bag for the journey. Leave that off to one side. That's how David was approaching it, wasn't it? He was stripped down to the essentials. What did he need? That's what I need. Stones, a sling, small bag to carry them in, and me. I'm going. And Jesus is taking that, isn't he? He's taking that stage further. No bag for the journey, no extra tunic, and we do, don't we? The boot of our car's full of coats and all sorts of boots and things that you're never going to likely to need, are you? Sandals or a staff. For the worker is worthy of his keep. If we've got these things right in our mind, we're fine. And all these examples are all there, just reinforced and just little bits added here and there all the way through. If we have faith in the gospel, we have that necessary concentration to face all of those eventualities that we're going to ever face in life. And Jesus said in Luke 18, Jesus replied to people, he said, what is impossible with men is possible with God. Which is where that is, isn't it? Because we are everything's impossible to us until we think we might be able to do it. But with God, everything is possible. Everything is possible with God. There is nothing that is not possible. And that is how these people eventually, I think we read about, went out in that tremendous faith. Because they realised that nothing is impossible with God. And Jesus reiterates that, doesn't he? And Jesus says to his disciples, because you have so little faith, and that's the key to this thing, isn't it? It's the faith we have. It's so easy to talk about, but it's so difficult to capture in that bottle and to keep it there and hope that it stays. I tell you the truth, if you have faith, they're small. There's this small mustard seed, small seed. If you have faith like that, you'll be able to say to this mountain, anything in life, anything, you can do anything. Move from here to there, and it will move, because nothing will be impossible for you. So we can approach to this in our minds, we can approach, and that's the state of mind we need. And that's the state of mind we see Jesus has constantly, because he must have had that in order to deliver what he delivered on our behalf. I have one more. I have to say, this came from someone last Sunday. And one more quote. I don't know why I chose quotes, because I'm not a great quote person, but I like this one as well. If you feel like taking this idea away with you, then I think this was a quote I heard. I've changed it very slightly, but it's the essence of it is there. Can't is like a self-built cage. How many of those people, and this was Andrew Motley the other week at Ipswich, he just mentioned that in his talk, and I think you could build a whole series of talks on this, but it's right, isn't it? And that's what those people we've spoken about, some of those people. You imagine Jonah. Oh, I can't do that. Built the cage around him. Didn't think of God. Remember, everything's possible with God. Nothing's impossible. Everything's possible with God. Self-built cage. All these people built it around. David, the example I gave you just now, didn't, did he? He actually took the cage away. The cage of armour went. And he approached the Philistine, the world, in the time, in the biggest battle that there could be, as you see this huge sort of giant of a fellow that is a phenomenal person, approached it solely with faith that God was going to do what God had said he would do. So, human nature. Mentioned Jonah. Find excuses in life, can't we? We can build that cage of negativity around ourselves. But we look, don't we, to those words we've spoken about that are positive, inspirational, the words and the actions of Jesus, what he did, how he did them for us. They destruct, if you like, and break down, as we saw with David there. They break down that cage, and they give confidence to us, and that's the confidence we need. So much of that is to do with that if factor, isn't it? If I think too hard, and I've left it. So I knew I should just one more tiny thing in here, if it's still here. I don't really get annoyed, do I, Rachel? Not very much. No. Not about things that don't matter anyway, I'm sure. I insured my motorcycle the other day, and I insured my motorcycle against accidents. And I rang up, and I said, I just want to, you've sent me all the quotes, all the paperwork, and I just want to do this. Can I give you my card number? It's not like that, is it? It just doesn't work like that, does it? So, that's all I wanted to do. So, I have here a policy document. This policy document, to insure my motorcycle, tells me about cancelling, claims, credit searches and accounting, exceptions, riding on the motorcycle, and it goes on and on and on. Now I rang up, and it took me 3 minutes to listen to the lady to start with about what I could do and couldn't do, and they were going to monitor this and everything else. And then 2 minutes listening to the standards that she had to tell me before I could even talk to her. And then a few minutes confirming who I was, although it was pretty obvious from the initial talk who I was. So I think it took something like 15 minutes to actually get to the point of saying, what would you like? Oh, I'd just like you to take my number and I'd like to pay for the quote that you sent me. And I had this document, as I say. So if we distill down those words, we're talking about distilling this morning, because this is what really got me, I think, got me thinking about what I'd say this morning. If we distill down all the words and actions of Jesus, we have the essence of what the most confident followers had inspired in their lives. And there's a beauty and there's an inspirational quality about everything that Jesus did for us. So this document is roughly, within a few, 23,000 words. Jesus recorded words in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John and Acts, and Revelation contain 41,000. Just under twice the number, okay? And many of those episodes in those 41,000 words, remember, are reiterating similar stories but slightly different to give us a slightly different inflection as to what went on. What I'm saying is that if all the words could be put into that, which they basically could by the time we distill it down, then we have everything in life that the whole of this world is actually really based upon. And this is a very silly motorcycle insurance policy document that contains all those words. And I just think it puts it in total perspective as to where I started. This is Jesus' words. These are the distilled words. And they are that many compared with all the written words that we have in this world. And I think it's a preciousness about it, which is why we need just a drop of that every now and again in our bottle to change that colour and to keep it there. And we do need, don't we, all these recorded words as they build up that picture. And it is a huge picture that those small amount of words build up about his life, his death, his resurrection for us. And isn't it amazing that so few words had such an impact on this world, considering our own futile attempts to create very simple documents. So in attempting to, if you like, just encapsulate what we're thinking about this morning, to distill down faith in its simplest form, for me, and there are many examples, I just come to those words of Jesus with the repentant criminal. You'll know the episode I'm just going to talk about. It's in Luke 23. One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at Jesus. They're those people that just couldn't care less about life, don't want part of what a future could hold. And he said, "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." Taunting, rebuking, faithless words. But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God," he said, "since you're under the same sentence, and we are punished justly." He takes it on himself. We're here because we should be here. He's not. We're getting what our deeds deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong. And that's the distilled essence, isn't it, of Jesus in these emblems. Nothing wrong. There's perfection there. And that criminal saw that in that very bleak moment in their own lives. And he said, and this I think is part of that great faith that person must have had at that time, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He knew enough to know that there was something else that was possible. And Jesus answered him, "I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise." And the next moment of that believer's life, because of his faith, will be in that kingdom. Surely a huge measure of that concentration at that time was poured into his bottle. And we do look forward to a time, don't we, which is why we're here this morning, when these emblems will not be necessary anymore. And in Revelation 22, because we know it's true, don't we? He who testifies to these things says, "Yes, I am coming soon. Amen. Come, Lord Jesus. The grace of the Lord Jesus Christ be with God's people. Amen."